Hello, this is Bill Webb, aka Billy Indiana. And today we're going to be doing a 3x3x3 review of Cartographers, but I have a special guest with me. This is Daniel from Punchboard Party. Hey, Daniel.
How you doing, Bill?
Good.
Really
So,
glad to be with you here. This is
yeah,
fun.
yeah, me too. We've been talking about this for a little while, and I'm excited to actually be making it happen today. We're going to talk about a game that we both enjoy, and we're going to go through my 3x3x3 strategy of three things that we like about the game, and then three things that either we didn't care for or we think other players might not enjoy. And then we'll end up by giving some recommendations of three other games. And spoiler alert, we're going to give you more than three, but three other games at least that we think you might enjoy if you enjoy Cartographers. So let's just get this game rolling. So Daniel, tell us, what is one of the things that you really like about Cartographers?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. So right off the bat, what I really enjoy about cartographers is that I'm not a huge fan of polyomino games to begin with. I mean, I like them when I play them, but I'm not drawn to them. And what I really enjoy about cartographers is that you don't have to worry about adjacency rules.
Mm.
So what you're doing in cartographers is, you're getting a polyomino shape that you get to draw on your own little player board, and then there's terrain types that you get to choose from to what terrain type do you want to make that shape. But what I love is that you can just put that shape anywhere. So if you want to start working on something over on the left side of your page, awesome. And then if you don't want to add to that anymore, you want to start working on another terrain type or something, you can go over to the other side of the page. So there's lots of freedom in the movement there. So that's something I really enjoy is that yes, you have the constraints, which makes the game fun in terms of what shape you're drawing and what terrain type you have to draw. But you get to really play around with, I want to try something different over here, or I don't like how this is going. I think I got to change things up. So let's move this shape up here over there. So I like the freedom or the breath of fresh air it gives me to be able to put shapes where I want.
Yeah, very cool. I'm actually a sucker for polyomino games, so
Okay.
so this one drew me in right away. But on the other hand, I'm not really a big fan of roll and writes typically, but this one I
Okay.
really enjoy. Well, that's not one of my three necessarily, but just thinking about what you shared. So the first thing that I thought of in terms of the things that I really like about Cartographers is you can play it solo. So if you don't have others to play with, you can just play it by yourself. But you can really technically play it with any number of players. I think on the box it actually gives a range, 1 to 100
1 to 1.
players.
Yeah. 1 to 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I like that flexibility of you got a big group, great, you can play it. You got a small group, great. You're by yourself, great. So that's one of the things that I really like about Cartographers is that flexibility of how big your game group is, or even playing solo.
Awesome. So have you soloed this quite a bit?
Yeah, actually, on my 5x5 challenge that I'm put myself, I'm trying to play 5 different games, at least 5 times each in
Okay.
this year, and playing them solo. I'm doing a 9x9 challenge with my family. We're doing it as a family, but I wanted to also get some solo plays in. And this is one I picked because I just really do enjoy it. And before I started that challenge, I'd probably played it at least a dozen times, but I didn't want to quit playing it through this year, so that's why I gave myself a challenge. And I've already played it a few times this year too. So
Okay, that's awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So my next thing that I really like about the game is how the scoring works. So basically, there's four scoring rounds. So there's 4 rounds, and at the end of each round, you're going to score. But there's cards that you put up at the top. So there's scoring cards, and then there's these A, B, C, D cards. And when you put those on top of the scoring cards, it indicates on A, you'll score this way. On B, you'll score this way. And each round, it indicates that you're scoring A and B. And then the next round, you'll score B and C. And then you'll score C and D. And then you'll score D and A. And what I really enjoy about the way that things score is that you're constantly worried about everything. Because you know that right out of the gate, you want to be scoring A because you want to get a good lead. But at the same time, you're looking down at D and you're thinking, well, I could score pretty heavily on D if I start building towards it now. But of course, now your affections are divided.
Yeah.
And so it creates this wonderful game within the game where it tears me apart because I just want to do everything all at once. But so you really got to choose your battles.
Kind of hurts so good, huh?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I really enjoy that dimension.
That's
of the game.
great. Yeah, I really love that as well. It's a unique thing, I think, where you rotate your scoring through, and yeah, it's a special
Yeah.
part of the game that I enjoy too. The second thing that I have is just the beauty of the game. I really like the art in this world that the Thunderworks game group has created. And I love the art on the cards. I bought the neoprene mat, and it not only gives it kind of the function of where you put the cards, so it makes it really easy to remember how to set everything up, especially for new players that you might be teaching. But just even the art on the neoprene map is beautiful. And even what you're creating, we always use colored pencils when we do it. I think in the rules, it talks about drawing a tree shape and a building shape for the different kinds of terrains. I'm not artistic at all. So like drawing those shapes that would make me not enjoy the game. So we just use colored pencils, and blue for water and yellow for fields and, red for villages and so on and so forth. And so when you're done, you have these really pretty maps of what you've drawn and created, even that all you're doing is just coloring in boxes. But it actually is really pretty when you're done. You got like a piece of art, you've got a product. And I was looking on BGG, Board Game Geek, and there are some incredible samples of pictures where people that do have artistic ability, they're not just coloring it in with colors like I am, they're actually coloring it in, but giving shapes, and it really truly looks like a map when they're done. It's impressive. So the art,
I gotta take a look at that, because that sounds really cool.
I'll
Because
probably
that was
put
something
them on here afterwards in the editing and just show some, because they're pretty incredible.
Okay, yeah, because that was something that Sarah, my wife, said after we played. The first time, she enjoyed it a lot more the second time, but after the first time, she kind of struggled a little bit. But she said, "I think I would enjoy it a lot more if we were using colored pencils, and I could make it look a little pretty, and I could, distinguish what the different terrains were by color, and so just as an activity, it could be fun to add in more of an artistic flair by using colored pencils or whatever the case may be." So when you said that, I was like, "Oh, Sarah had the same idea."
Yeah, it was funny. When I first started playing this game, I was watching one of the Board Game Co videos, and Alex was talking about he was thinking about culling this game, and several of us in the comments said, "You should try colored pencils. It's way easier than drawing the shapes." And then, at least at that time, I think he decided to keep it and give it a try.
Okay, good. Yeah, well, I wonder if he got rid of it since then.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen it on any of his culling videos, but obviously I can't watch everything that everybody puts out.
No, no, for sure. No, I'd be surprised though, because anyway, spoiler, we like it. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to get rid of it.
Yeah, I don't see our family getting rid of it either.
So my number three that things I like here, is I actually like the ambushes. So there's an aspect of this game where you're going to get attacked by monsters, what are they called, kobos or
there's different names for the individuals. There's like goblins and all kinds of different things.
Yeah. So you're going to get attacked by monsters. And how you do this is there's a polynomial shape that you're going to draw on your map, but you don't draw it. You actually pass your paper around. I think it's just like you pass it clockwise or something. I would play with two, so we just hand it back and forth. But an opponent puts that shape anywhere on your sheet. And so usually I don't love take that mechanisms in games, because I just want to be left alone. I just want to build my nice little thing. If I'm doing well, I just want to do well. If I'm not doing well, just leave me alone, not doing well. Like people complain about how there's not a lot of interactivity in certain games. There's no player interaction. That's never a downside for me. I just leave me alone. And
like that
sitting at the table with you. Yeah, sitting at the table with you is interactivity enough for me. But so with this, I wasn't expecting to enjoy it, but what I really enjoyed was that at the same time as my opponent is drawing a shape on my sheet, I'm drawing a shape on their sheet. So there's a fairness that comes in. Ever since I was a kid, I was really concerned about what was fair. And so right in this game, it just hits me right in that nerve of, oh, well, at least I have the opportunity too. And then it's kind of a game of who can screw the other one up better, which is kind of a fun way to play the game. So I enjoyed that, and I thought it was fair. So I didn't think it took it too far. And it also kind of creates, like, you can mitigate the damage by building shapes around the monsters to take away your minus points. So I thought it just added more gaminess to the game that way too.
Yeah, yeah, it's a really interesting interaction. Again, something I think unique to this game, at least from my experience. Now, I have limited experience, but yeah, I really enjoy that as well.
Yeah.
My third thing is every game's going to be different because, as you were talking about with the scoring, you get different scorecards, and so those come out different. And for each of the different types, there's multiple ones. So you kind of randomly pick one for the forest, and you randomly pick one for the villages, and you randomly pick one for the fields and the water, so on and so forth. And so you're going to have a different combination of those. And then you also put them out potentially in a different order for the seasons. So you've got lots of different combinations in terms of what your scoring needs to be each game. And then the order is going to be also different. And then you also can obviously choose to put your polyomino shapes wherever you want. So your map's always going to look different. And then there's a timer in it where as you're flipping over the cards, you have a number in the corner. And when it reaches a certain number, depending on the season, that season ends. And you might get some zeros and some ones, and you might get a whole bunch of opportunity to draw territories in a particular season. And then the next season, you might get like 2, 2, 2, and you're done. Like it cuts the season short. And also the fact that you don't know when the ambushes are coming. So you put one in every round, and if it doesn't show up, it's going to still be there the next round, and you're adding another one. But if it does show up, then it goes out of the game. So you kind of know how many are going to be in there, but you don't know if they're going to show up, and you don't know when they're going to show up. And that's different every game, obviously, as well. And plus, there's a fairly good stack of the different kinds of monsters that you're going to be bringing into the game. And so the shapes and how they impact are also going to be unique. And then we also got the ambush expansion, the mini expansion, and the skills mini expansion. So the ambush one basically just gives you more of those monsters, and so more variety. But the skills mini expansion is kind of cool. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, so I've seen it. I haven't dived into it, but it looks like you get like a asymmetrical power or something.
Yeah, so you choose 3 cards out of the stack, and each card has a different ability. Like maybe you can have your polyomino shape hang off the edge, or you can just choose to draw a shape that wasn't on the polyomino, like a 2x2 anywhere you want, or you can draw a shape. You use the shape, but you can change the color. There's all these different skills, but they have a cost. So one of the things you gain as you're going through and building your map is you have the opportunity to gain coins, either by the shapes you choose to color in, or by if you surround the mountain squares entirely on the 4 sides. And so you can use those coins to then use those skills, and you can use 1 skill per season. So it adds even more variability if you get those mini expansions. So yeah, every game is going to be a bit different. And so I like that I think that for me, that replayability is partly what draws me back too, is I know that I'm not going to be able to use the same strategy this game, because I might have to do villages earlier. And sometimes you get a nice combination. You can say, oh, that's just going to combo well, like I can work on this and that's going to help me get this one later. And other times you're like, how can I make these things fit? And it's a really nice puzzle to put that together. So my third one was just how much replayability there is, because every game will be different.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't put it as one of the things I liked about the game, but when you mentioned the how the scoring changes up how many cards you see in a round, or not the scoring,
Oh yeah, like the
round,
timer,
the
how many
round timer.
territories show up.
Yeah. So that was something that impressed me about the game, was how it really clips along. Like you get a nice decent amount of time near the beginning to figure things out, to get into it, and then the timer gets shorter and shorter as you go. And depending on how the cards come out, you're right, that can be really quick end round. So that again adds this nice little bit of tension where it's like, I have to do a certain amount of things in this last round in order to pull off the victory.
Yeah.
And if it goes quick, it goes quick.
Yeah.
So that is neat. That is neat.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit, and let's share some of the things that either we didn't like about the game, or we could see other players maybe not appreciating.
Let's just hate on the game a little bit.
Yeah, that's really both of our styles, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. So my first thing that I didn't like about the game, again, it's a little thing. This is just an aesthetic thing mainly, where when I was looking into this game initially, I was a little turned off, because yes, there was some beautiful art on the territory cards, but the scoring cards themselves are really just grids with stars on them. And the polyomino shapes. So it looks pretty mathy, like, and just with the polynomial shapes to begin with, and then kind of the mathy way it kind of scores. It was a hurdle that I needed to get over getting into this game, to be like, wait, am I just playing a spreadsheet, or like am I doing math? Like what what's going on here? And of course there's a really fun game at the core,
Yeah.
but it was a bit of an aesthetic barrier that the scoring cards didn't look prettier. They just sort of looked like
A math problem.
yeah, like math homework. You could probably assign this to some of your students, you know.
Yeah.
So that was my first kind of barrier, but I'm glad I got over it.
Yeah. Yeah, mine's actually kind of similar. I think it's not a really complicated game, but there's a lot to kind of absorb at the beginning. And so to me, I've played a fair bit of games compared to a lot of the people that I play with. And so to me, it kind of clicked quickly, and I wasn't intimidated by it, but I've introduced it to a number of people and they've all liked it. But the first couple rounds, they were really trying to grapple with it because they didn't really have much gaming experience. And so it kind of surprised me that it is actually a little bit harder for new gamers to sort of grasp all of that. I think part of it is the mathy part. They're like, what's the diagonal again? And how do I get these corners? And there's just a lot to kind of think about if you want to have a good strategy. If all you want to do is just color in the shapes, that's pretty easy. But if you want to have a good strategy, there's a lot to kind of digest at the beginning. And that mathy part, especially if I wouldn't add in like the skills expansion or something for someone's first play.
Right.
But yeah, so I agree that the scoring and then just the number of things you have to think about could be a bit overwhelming for new gamers. So that was the first thing I thought of that might be a hurdle to overcome.
Yeah, well, Sarah kind of she struggled with her first play in terms of understanding how some of the scoring worked.
Yeah.
Because it's there's one scoring card that you get points for every forest square that's surrounded orthogonally, right?
Yeah.
And so she was like, and so she kind of misread what the scoring was. So she was doing something different for the first round, And so that is a little tricky, right? You don't want someone to have a negative experience because they just didn't understand how the scoring worked,
Yeah.
But
yeah,
of course, it's short enough that you could just go back and play again.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple of games since when I've taught players, I've actually kind of spoken out loud about what I'm doing, because in some games I would be hesitant to do that because you don't want to make them feel like you're playing their game for them. But in this one, I just say what I'm doing and why, and then they wouldn't necessarily do the same thing because their map looks different, especially as it starts coming out. And so, but at least they get to start think, oh, there's some strategy that I could consider. And that seemed to help the last time. It was just actually a couple of weeks ago. I was teaching some of my family how to play, and I think they caught on quicker. And I didn't do it the whole game, just the first couple of plays. Oh, I'm going to draw mine this way because, and I'm going to, even though it's not till the fall season, it's my best option for right now. So just kind of talking through that strategy. So that I think was helpful for the last time I taught some new players.
Yeah, that sounds really helpful. That sounds like a great way to at least they know the kind of thing they should be doing.
Yeah.
At the first, because that leads into my next thing that I didn't love about the game is, and I think this is a new player problem more than anything, because it goes back to what we were talking about. But if you don't understand the scoring, or you don't, you might screw up your first couple turns. And I do find this game is hard to catch up in, because the way that the scoring works, and you're going to score your A again at the end. You kind of that first. Your first effort to get your kind of A scoring card all filled out nicely in that first round. If you can do that well and another player hasn't, then you're getting whatever points you earned in that round twice over what they're getting. So you really kind of need to come out of the gate strong in order to stay competitive. So I found in one game that Sarah and I had, I was in the lead the whole time. And then the next game, Sarah was in the lead the whole time. I did. So again, might need to play more to see how that really comes out in the wash. But at least for new players, it can be hard to find a way to get caught up. So I don't know if you found that or what, but that was something I experienced.
Yeah, I've probably played the game 20 or so times, I'm guessing. And I thinking back, I kind of went through sort of a roller coaster of, at the beginning, I think maybe sometimes just getting a little bit lucky, or maybe it was just a really nice combination of things and I didn't realize it, and had some pretty high scores early. And then I went kind of through a wave where I think I was pigeonholing myself too rigidly. Like, I've really got to score good this round. And then my scores actually started to drop. And then I've now in the last 6 or 8 plays, I feel like I've kind of found a rhythm where, and because I've played it enough, like you said, I'm not a new gamer at this one anymore. I've played it, a couple dozen times almost. And so, but now I can see them and I can think about maximizing, well, this one probably is the one I'm going to be able to get the most points on. And it's, even though it's in the winter, anytime that comes up, anytime in the game, I'm just going to try to capitalize on that, because I know I might get like a 70-point round or a 60-point round later, even though I'm getting a short one now. So I think that the repetition of plays, and you start to see how you can maximize your points even in future rounds. So, but yeah, for sure, for new gamers, I had that same experience where whoever got it off to the lead generally won.
Right. No, but I'm glad that there's hope that can switch around when we get a little better at the game. So that's good.
Yeah, my second thing is, to me, this is just a very relaxing game. It's also almost meditative. Like, I'm just coloring in, and I'm a mathy kind of a person, so thinking through the combinations, I like that, and it's relaxing to me. And so I don't mind if the game takes a while. I don't mind if it goes fast. I'm just like here for the experience and just enjoying it. But I could see if some players want those quicker games or more like aggressive games or whatever, this one might feel a little bit boring for that kind of player. Or if you're playing with a bunch of people who really are prone to analysis paralysis, and their AP is making them like take forever to decide where to draw their shape, and so you're done and you're just kind of waiting. You can't go to the next round because someone is like, oh, maybe I should draw it here, or maybe I should draw it there. And so if that bothers you, that other people might slow the game down, or if you just like a more high-paced, aggressive style game, I could see that maybe turning some players off.
Yeah, I think there's some key moments in this game that are really prone to analysis paralysis, and I think it's when a new terrain type comes out. Because then you're thinking, oh, do I interfere with my big combo that's happening, or where do I go with this? So yeah, I can see that happening a lot. There was a couple times where I was finished my move and Sarah was still going at it. And so yeah, really variable. But when you start in on something and it comes up, then that's a quick turn, right?
Yeah,
you know exactly what you want.
Yeah.
But I can see it. Yeah, I can see AP sneaking its way in here quite a bit. So my last thing that I didn't like so much, and this is going to be solved fairly soon with the expansion or the new standalone, however it's playing out here. But I didn't think there was enough content in the box. I loved what was in it, and I loved I think the scoring cards, there was enough scoring cards. I liked how there was that variety, but I would have loved them to have matched that variety with the terrain cards and with the ambush cards. I just felt like I would have loved to have been setting up the game and, picking 10 cards from a stack of 40. So that it just felt a little more variety, and not so much. I wasn't looking for things mechanically different too much. I think there was a couple times where I found like certain terrain types weren't coming up as much as I wanted them to, but I think that's just the game. Like, that's just what you get stuck with. So sometimes I wish that there was a bit more in the deck, but at the same time, you don't want to get burdened with just villages. So I can see why they did what they did. But I would have liked maybe the option of a new deck, so you can play with this deck or that deck, and you just get new arts and new. So like one deck is a typical D&D town pub bar, and the next one is maybe like a dark elf underground village or something, right? Like, if they did that, I just wanted more art. I just wanted more things to explore that way. But we're getting Cartographers Heroes, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And that's just a whole new set. It looks like the same game, but just a whole new set of stuff. So I think my wish is coming true. So that's that's good there.
Yeah, I backed that one, and just watching some videos with the creators, there's going to be different kinds of maps and different mechanisms as well. Like, I think on one of the maps, there's a volcano where the lava is actually flowing across your map. And so
Okay.
there's going to definitely be some new things, but like you said, it's a standalone game, but you can integrate it with the original. And so it is
Okay.
going to create some variability, but also some new events and new
Okay.
effects and mechanisms. So I'm really excited for that one.
Yeah, looks cool.
Yeah. Yeah, the third one that I had is I tend to play my group, my family's, who my group is these days. They're extreme Care Bears. Like they do not like take that. They do not like aggressive games. And while, like you said, I agree that it feels fair. You're doing mine, I'm doing yours in terms of putting the ambush goblin shape on there or whatever.
Yeah.
But they don't like that. But I did find a workaround for it. So
Okay.
when you play the solo game, so if you're with someone that just can't get over that, when you play the solo game, obviously there's no one to pass your map to. So the way it works is on the ambush card in the corner where the arrow is, it tells you which way you should pass your map. There's also a little grid. And so it has it's just 4 corners and it has a dot in one of the corners. So if you're playing solo, you look at where the dot is and that's the corner you start in. And then you just keep going around the board and spiraling in until you find a spot where that shape that's on the goblin card or the ambush card fits in exactly the same orientation as is shown on the card. Whereas when you pass it to someone, they can decide how they want to orient it. Here you have to draw it in that orientation. And the first place you see that it fits, you have to draw it.
Yeah.
So sometimes you get lucky and it fits right in a place where you've got a lot of other colored shapes. And so you've already got it partly surrounded. Other times it's like out in the middle of nowhere and you're like,
Yeah.
dang, I'm going to have to do a lot of work to get this thing surrounded. So there's some randomness, but in that case, there's no attack. So we actually, I asked the people when I'm playing with the new, because we had a family situation. We went and we were actually seeing some of our family in Indiana recently. And so I've only ever played it with my family here in California, and then again with my family there in Indiana. But I always ask them, do you want it to be a little aggressive or do you want it to be just absolutely not aggressive? And they almost always say, no aggression, like take that away. So we just use the solo rule of you do it yourself and you just follow what the card says instead of passing it. And that seems to work pretty well for those that
You know
really...
what? That's a brilliant solution. That's a brilliant solution because it's there, like it's in the game.
Yeah.
And so
yeah, it's not a
to
house
use
rule.
that
You're
way,
just applying it in a different way.
yeah, that's nice and creative. Thank you for that tip.
Yeah, sure.
Because I could see that coming in handy for some groups.
Yeah.
Most of the people I play with like to get a little nasty though, so I think I'll be okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have quite a few games that I would love to play that are a little bit more nasty, but I have a really hard time in this quarantine setting no one that I live with really likes those kind of games. And so hopefully eventually we'll be able to game with some other people too, and I can get some.
Well, Sarah's really funny. She hates doing mean things to other players. So if we have company over or whatever the case, she just doesn't want to do any of those moves. But she has no problem doing it to me. So I just get all of those cards or all of those actions just in my direction. And there's one time I got mad because I was like, that is not your optimal move. Why are you beating me up? And she was like, I don't want to be mean to our friends. So that's always fun too.
Yeah, that's funny.
There's actually Imhotep. I don't know if you played that, but it can be a little mean because you get to, yeah.
I've only played the Imhotep duel, but
oh, cool. I haven't played that yet.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's off track.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, this is just one of those fun, relaxed times. It's fun to have these conversations.
Sweet.
So we've talked about the 3 things that we really liked, and then 3 things that either we didn't like or we could see other people maybe being turned off by. Let's give them some recommendations. If you like Cartographers, or if you think you'll like Cartographers, what are some other games that ring the same kind of bell or have something that connects that you think we could recommend to the viewers?
Yeah, so my first thought here was just role player. So Cartographers, if you notice on the box, it'll say Cartographers, a role player game, I think, something like that. So
yeah, a role player tale.
A role player tale. Yeah, so it's in that same world as role player. And so role player, if you haven't checked it out, I think it's just a must. You just need to go check that game out. And the reason why I'm recommending it, I think there's a little bit of match in some of the mechanisms, but really it's more just the art and the variety. It's still giving you that feel of in role player, you're kind of collecting items and attaching them to a character, and you're building up your character's stats using dice and putting them in a grid in certain orders or getting certain number values if you add the row together in a certain way. So that part, the whole dice part, where you're trying to match the colors and the shape that you have on certain cards, or you're trying to get a certain number value by putting those dice in a row, that reminds me a lot of cartographers, where you're trying to make certain patterns or make combinations of polynomial shapes. So I think that same kind of pattern building you're going to enjoy in cartographers and in role player. But also, I think in role player, you're just going to enjoy exploring this world more. You get to see, the heroes of this world in action. You get to see them, depending on the certain item cards, vaulting over things or fighting things with swords. And it's just thematically, it's kind of it's a little more exciting. You're not just drawing a map. You're setting up a character to go on an adventure. So I'd recommend role player.
Yeah, I love role player. We have the Monsters and Minions expansion, and I backed the Role Player Adventures Kickstarter too. So I'm really excited to add those to the collection.
That's awesome.
Well, my first one that's actually 2 games, but they're similar in the fact that you're flipping cards and then completing sort of a map. The first one is Silver and Gold, which is very much like Cartographers, except instead of building a big map with your pieces, you have these small little mini maps, and you flip over the shape and then you draw it on your mini maps, and you actually fill in the mini maps, kind of Tetris-y. And then as soon as it's filled in, you put that aside and get another one. And you're trying to fill in as many little mini maps as you can. But it's the same that you're flipping over the cards and you're drawing the shape. It's just not on a big map. It's a bunch of sequential mini maps. And you always have 2 in front of you. Have you played Silver and Gold?
No, but it sounds fascinating. It sounds really neat.
It's really easy to teach new players, and it's a very quick game. But it kind of scratches that same itch of having those shapes and drawing them in and shading them in. So we really like that one, especially for a quick filler game. It's even quicker than this one. So yeah, that one's nice. And then a similar one that's also flipping cards, but then instead of coloring in a map, you're actually following around a world map, either Europe or the US, and it's called On Tour. So have you played On Tour?
No, I haven't played On Tour either.
Yeah, so that one
I'm behind on all these roll and writes,
Yeah, so it's funny because I don't typically like a lot of roll and writes, but I found a few that I just really jive with. So, but this one, you flip over a card and it gives you a range, like, well, it has to be on the East Coast or in the Central or in the Northwest corner or whatever. And so you're not coloring in shapes, but you're picking spots, and you're actually trying to map out the tour path that your band is going to go on tour and do all your concerts in, and you're trying to get them in sequential order as you go. So it has that same kind of mapping feeling that way, and also the card flipping thing, but a very different end result. So that's my first awesome. 2 for 1.
Yeah, no, that you got to give the people what they're looking for. You got to give them lots of games here. My second one. So again, it's not that I don't like roll and writes or flip and writes, but I'm just not drawn to them. I feel like if you've played one, you've played a lot of them. But there's a couple that really stand out to me, and Cartographers is one of them. But another one that stands out to me is Welcome To. So have you played Welcome To?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so Welcome To has this great, so your player sheet has 3 rows of houses, and they're different lengths. And basically what you're going to do is on a turn, you're going to reveal 3 house door numbers, and then the backs of the deck is going to give you a special ability that you'll be able to color in on your sheet as well. So when you pick a house number, you're also picking the ability that's next to it. So you're kind of getting a 2 for 1 thing when you pick a number on house. But then you got to put that house number in ascending order along one of the rows of houses that you're building on. So like any neighborhood, you're going to get, 2, 5, 15, they're going to space, but you got to be careful of how far you space them apart, because there's only so many numbers that are going to fit in between your previous number and the number that's next. So you're always kind of guessing, how far down the road do I want to put this number? Okay. And when do I think these other numbers are going to come up for me? And so I picked this one as a recommendation, not so much that I feel like it's super similar to Cartographers, because I think it has quite a different thing going on. I feel like it's a lot more restrictive. And it also has a few more, it gives you bonuses that you're kind of working towards throughout the game, or different scoring opportunities. As well as the house numbers, you also have different scoring opportunities at the same time. But why I want to recommend it is that it's a roll and write that stands out. Yeah. So Cartographer stands out, this stands out. So I want to give the people kind of just, if they like that genre of games, these are ones that they should really go after and find.
Very cool.
because they make a splash.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't played that one, or I think there's like a Las Vegas one or something too.
Yeah, so Las Vegas, Las Vegas is a little too much.
Oh, really?
There's they add some mechanisms that you can do. So in the first one, there's a main mechanism where you're building fences,
Hmm.
and when you get a certain number of houses fenced in, you get kind of there's scoring cards that if you're the first one to get that, you'll get more points than the second person to get it. And things. So it might be you're looking for a fenced-in space of 3 or a fenced-in space of 5 or both. But in Las Vegas, you're building these like limo routes
Okay.
that go all through and it's just discombobulating to look at, let alone figure out where to put these routes. I remember jumping in to Board Game Arena as my buddies were playing it. I jumped on late, and I was just sort of spinning trying to figure out what they were trying to do. But I think if you like one, you'd like the other. Just a little more stuff going on.
Cool. Well, my second one is again another 2-for-1, but because I see some similarities, but one is a little more old school and one's maybe a little more modern. So the old school one, if you have friends that have played Catan, there's a Catan dice game, and you're rolling the dice and you're moving kind of around this map and gathering the different resources as you move around the map. And the further you move around, your resources change. So there's this map connection to it, but it's roll and write instead of flip and write. So you're not flipping cards. So that's a little bit different. And then another roll and write that I think is a little more modern that a lot of people are loving is Railroad Inc. And so you roll the dice and it tells you how to make or what your options are for making the railroad tracks on your map. And so again, you're creating a map like Cartographers, but with railroad tracks. So those are a couple that instead of flipping cards, it's focused more on the dice you roll that some people may enjoy that have a similar feel in terms of the map connection, but a different kind of writing game, a blank and write game.
Right. Right. That's awesome. So my last recommendation, this is a game that I really love. I really love it. It's Tiny Towns. And this is a flip and write game, but it doesn't feel like a flip and write game because it's chunkier. You're putting cubes out on your little player board and putting actual like little building pieces onto your player board. So it feels more like you're playing a game than, and this is kind of what got me into the genre or got me over my fear of the genre, because I'm kind of old school. I don't like to draw on my games. And I know that it's a sheet of paper that you're supposed to draw on with roll and write games, but I still feel weird about it. So Tiny Towns, there's none of that. You just have cubes that you're putting out on a little board. So you got cards, and the cards have polynomial shapes on them. And the shapes are made up of different color squares. And the different color squares correspond to different resources. And you're trying to make shapes on your little player board, and then once you complete a shape, then you can build the building that you were building with that shape. And what you do is you take off all the cubes that you used to build that building, and then you put the building onto one of the spaces that one of those cubes occupied. And so it's this wonderful thing where your player board is expanding and getting more restrictive, and there's less space to put your cubes to start building another building. And then all of a sudden it'll shrink and just one space will be occupied again, and you kind of start fresh a little bit. So it's this like, oh, this is getting really tight. Oh, okay, I can do something else now. Like it just, but then every time it does that, it's getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and you're going closer and closer to the end. And the one thing about this game, Tiny Towns, is that it has a really deflating end game. where 9 times out of 10, you just get to a point where you're like, you know, you only have 2 turns left in you, and the resource that's being called for needs to be a certain thing. And usually it's 1 out of 5 resources or whatever. And so when it doesn't get called, it's just kind of boom, there goes my end game. Right? But really enjoy Tiny Towns, and I think it really has that same feeling for me of Cartographers, where you get to put your shapes wherever you want to, so you have agency to try and make your patterns as best you can. But it has this added dimension of spaces that were occupied become free again. And so you're constantly sort of like, yeah, I can build this shape and I'll still have room to sneak in. But this is a game where the smarter people win. so you gotta be careful who you play with.
Choose your opponents wisely.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Well, my third recommendation is kind of a tangent. It's more a focus on the polyomino aspect of it. If you like that part of it, but not necessarily the writing part of it, Baron Park is a nice polyomino game where you're putting the shapes out and you're actually creating a bear park with different kinds of bears, panda bears and polar bears and so on and so forth. And you're just generating this park and you're putting food courts and stuff in. We really like that game. And then Patchwork is another one that's like that. For the Baron Park, you have to put the tiles next to each other. They have to be touching. But if you like the freedom of that Cartographers, where you can kind of put it wherever you want, the Patchwork game is similar to, you got these polyomino tiles, you're putting them out, but you don't have to put them adjacent to each other. You can put them wherever you want. You're just trying to close in all the space. So if you're not so much into the roll and write, flip and write, something and write, but you like the polyominoes, there's a couple of games you might want to consider. So that's my final recommendation.
Those are good recommendations. And when I saw that you had Baron Park on the list, I was like, uh-oh, because that's the game that kind of made me hate polyominoes.
Oh, really?
I like Baron Park. I think it's a great recommendation. So take the recommendation, people. It is good. But my spatial recognition abilities aren't the best. And so I need that freedom of play in order to make up for what I am deficit in. And so the fact that I had to put them next to each other, and the fact that in Baron Park, you have to fill in a quadrant and then you can get a new quadrant. And so the fact that I couldn't move on until I had filled out this little, it just was a little too restrictive for me. And I kept on getting frustrated, mainly because I wasn't playing efficiently. You know, if I was better at the game, I would enjoy it more. So it's a problem with me more than the game. But that's what made me like Cartographers, was that I was like, oh, okay, polyominoes, but I have freedom.
Yeah.
You know, but still a great game. Don't get me wrong. Go Walker Harding, don't hate me. I think you're great.
That's what's so great about the hobby too. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of games that you don't love as much as I do, and vice versa. I mean, I find very few games that I don't like. I just enjoy gaming in all kinds of. I'm an Omni gamer for sure. But there's always going to be those games that just, for whatever reason, for every individual, just really connect. And it could be something really small. And and then there's others that, like some games, my wife really loves Terraforming Mars, and as do millions of people. But for me, it's just okay. Like I like it, but it's not in my top 50. Like, it's just okay. But she loves it. So
well, and that happens. That happens all the time. All the time. You know. And I find I get a little weird where games that a lot of people like, or that people are clamoring to get to the table, I just get a little hipster about it, and I'm like, why don't we try something else? Why don't we see if there's anything better out there? You know, like Sarah, when she finds a game that she really likes, she's just like, why don't we just play? So whenever people come over or when we're playing together, she's like, why don't we just play this? We know we like it. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to find out about the games I don't know if I like yet. So I'm always pushing for more, but every now and then, just.
Well, that's fun. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for being willing to coordinate with me and to put this video together. For those of you that are watching, if you don't follow Daniel at Punchboard Party, you need to do it. He's got great content. As you can tell, he's just got an infectious personality, very engaging, great tasting games, from my opinion. Just, I love watching his videos. You know, I've got that bell notification on, so I see it as soon as it comes up. So, you know, give him a subscribe and check him out, because he's got great content. And we're going to do another collaboration as well. So this one's coming up on my channel, this Cartographers video, but we're going to do another one on Fantasy Realms, and that's going to be on his channel. So be looking for that. That's going to be a great one. We're looking forward to doing that one together as well. So again, thank you, Daniel. For those of you
thank you, Bill. This was awesome. Thanks for having me on your channel. Letting me talk your ear off about this stuff. You know?
Hey, I've had, just even getting ready to do this, and the chats we've had have been great for me. So it's been fun to continue to develop this relationship. So, well,
this is a really great way to just get further enjoyment out of the hobby. It's just meeting new people that are in the content creation sphere. And so, encourage all other content creators to just, even if you're small like us, just get together with some people and have a good time.
Yeah, exactly. So for those of you that are watching this video, thanks so much. If you've enjoyed the video, if it's been entertaining in the least, I'd love it if you'd click on that like button down below. it'd be terrific if you'd subscribe to both of our channels. And if you want to get notifications, click on that bell icon and you'll see when that Fantasy Realms comes up on his channel, and you'll see when the next video comes up on mine as well. As always, thanks for watching. This is Billy Indiana signing off.